The Nexus Prime Military Academy had seen its share of technical malfunctions over the centuries, but none quite like this. The biometric scanner outside Equipment Bay 7 had been functioning perfectly for the past 43 minutes, dutifully cataloging the genetic signatures and clearance levels of every cadet who approached it during the afternoon training rotation. Cadet Zeph Ka, whose crystalline exoskeleton refracted the corridor lighting into prismatic patterns, had received the expected access level standard training designation. Cadet Morven, all 6 feet of scaled reptilian muscle, got access level heavy weapons certified. Even Cadet Quillix, whose gelatinous form made traditional uniforms a bureaucratic nightmare, had been granted access with access level hazardous materials trained, glowing cheerfully across the display. The scanner was having what could generously be called a productive day. Over 97% of viewers here are watching without subscribing. Don't be one of them. Hit that subscribe button right now and join the journey. Every click helps us grow stronger, and you'll never miss the next epic story. Then Cadet Vex walked up. She looked unremarkable enough, if you were the sort to consider bipedal mammals unremarkable. Standard-issue Academy uniform stretched across a frame that measured exactly average for her species. Brown hair pulled back in the regulation style that somehow managed to look disheveled despite meeting every requirement in the manual. The kind of cadet whose name instructors forgot until exam week. Vex pressed her palm against the scanner's surface, same as 67 cadets before her that afternoon. The device froze. For 12 seconds, nothing happened. The display remained blank while internal processors presumably tried to make sense of whatever they were reading. Vex shifted her weight, glanced around at the growing queue of cadets behind her, then tried removing and replacing her hand. The scanner's display flickered to life. Access level, Creator. The words hung there in bold red letters that seemed to pulse with their own internal light. Somewhere in the depths of the Academy's central processing unit, 17 separate alarm protocols tried to activate simultaneously, crashed into each other, and settled for emitting a low, confused hum. "Well," said Cadet Morven, his forked tongue tasting the air nervously. "That's new." Instructor Vash Tool had been overseeing equipment distribution for the better part of 2 decades. In that time, he'd seen cadets attempt to hack scanners, reprogram them, and in one memorable incident involving a Zolonian exchange student, try to seduce them. He had never seen one simply break down and start inventing clearance levels. "Step away from the scanner, Cadet," Vash Tool ordered, his forearms gesturing with the kind of authority that comes from having survived 16 different military campaigns and 3 budget review committees. "There's obviously a malfunction." Vex backed away, hands raised. "I didn't do anything. Nobody said you did anything," Zefka chimed in, though their harmonic voice carried undertones that suggested otherwise. "Scanners malfunction all the time. Remember last month when the one in Sector C started reading everyone as deceased?" "That was different," Morven countered. "That was obviously broken. This one seems to think Vex is some kind of... What exactly is a creator, anyway?" The small crowd of cadets had grown larger, drawn by the universal appeal of watching someone else's embarrassment unfold. Whispered conversations rippled through the group in at least 6 different languages, none of which sounded particularly charitable. Instructor Vash Tool approached the scanner with the caution of someone who'd learned not to trust technology that behaved unexpectedly. He pressed his own palm against the surface. "Access level, senior staff authorization," appeared instantly. He frowned, tried again. Same result. "Cadet Quillix, step forward." The gelatinous being flowed closer, extended a pseudopod toward the scanner. "Access level, hazardous materials trained, Cadet Morven, access level, heavy weapons certified." Vashtul's expression grew increasingly grim as he worked his way through half the assembled cadets, each receiving their expected designation. Finally, inevitably, his gaze returned to Vex. Try again. Vex approached the scanner like it might bite her. The moment her palm made contact, the display blazed to life with those same impossible words. Access level. Creator. This time, the scanner added something new. A soft chime echoed through the corridor, followed by the mechanical voice that announced routine access grants. Welcome back. All systems await your command. The silence that followed was the kind that develops its own gravitational field. That, announced Cadet Morven, with the air of someone stating the obvious, is definitely not normal. Instructor Vashtul was already reaching for his communication device. Academy Control, this is Training Sector 7. We have a code yellow equipment malfunction. Nature of malfunction? Came the tinny reply. Vashtul glanced at the scanner, which was now displaying a constantly shifting array of symbols that hurt to look at directly. Biometric scanner is improvising. Sir, Vex interjected, maybe I should just use a different... Nobody touches anything else, Vashtul snapped. Control, upgrade that to code orange. Possible security breach in Training Sector 7. The response came faster this time. Security team dispatched. Maintain current positions. Cadet Zefka's crystalline structure chimed softly as they shifted nervously. Security? For a scanner glitch? Protocol, Vashtul replied, but his tone suggested he was asking himself the same question. The security team arrived with the efficiency that made Nexus Prime's reputation. 3 officers in full tactical gear, energy weapons at ready, moving with the kind of coordinated precision that turned corridor intersections into potential battlefields. Team leader Corks Wynn took one look at the scanner's display, still cycling through, those impossible symbols, and immediately escalated again. Director's Office, this is Security Team Alpha. Request immediate presence of Technical Analysis Team in Training Sector 7. A pause. Yes, sir. Unknown classification malfunction. Potentially compromised security protocols. Vex found herself surrounded by an expanding circle of authority figures, each more senior than the last, all staring at her like she'd personally insulted their programming. I really didn't do anything, she tried again. Of course you didn't, replied Director Thexnol, who had materialized with the sort of timing that suggested he'd been monitoring the situation since the first alarm. His species was rumored to be telepathic, though Academy regulations prohibited asking directly. Scanner malfunctions happen all the time. He didn't sound like he believed it. Director Thex Null was the sort of administrator who'd seen every kind of cadet crisis imaginable. Homesickness, academic failure, interspecies dating drama, existential crises about galactic purpose, all part of the territory when you educated the future military leaders of 47 different worlds. He was not, however, prepared for scanners that invented new security classifications. Technical analysis, report, he commanded. Chief Technician Gralmer consulted her diagnostic pad, mandibles clicking in what her species used to indicate perplexity. All scanner functions normal, sir. No signs of tampering, no software corruption, no external interference. Then why is it reading Cadet Vex as... He checked his own display. A creator? Unknown, sir. The classification doesn't exist in our database. Then where did it come from? Unknown, sir. Director Thex Null studied the scanner, which had now settled into a gentle blue glow that pulsed in rhythm with something that might have been breathing. Cadet Vex, you'll be temporarily reassigned to individual quarters while we investigate this situation. Sir, I haven't done anything wrong. Nobody said you had. This is purely precautionary. while we determine what's causing the malfunction." The way he said malfunction suggested he was beginning to doubt that's what they were dealing with. As Vex was escorted away by Security Team Alpha, the last thing she heard was Cadet Morven's voice drifting down the corridor. 50 credits says she's secretly an android. "You're on," Zefka replied. "My money's on Dimensional Refugee." If only they knew how wrong they both were. Dr. Keth had been summoned from the deep archives at what his species considered an ungodly hour, roughly equivalent to 3 in the afternoon by most galactic standards. His 6 legs carried him through corridors he rarely visited, past training facilities where young beings learned to kill each other efficiently and with proper military courtesy. The detention facility smelled of disinfectant and nervous sweat from a dozen different physiologies. Vex sat in a cell that had clearly been designed with larger occupants in mind, her legs dangling from a bench meant for something twice her size. "Comfortable?" Dr. Keth inquired, settling his insectoid frame into a consultation posture that involved far too many joints bending in directions that made bipeds uncomfortable. "Peachy. Love what you've done with the bars." Keth's compound eyes glittered with what might have been amusement. "Director Thex Null asked me to examine the scanner data. I specialize in ancient technologies." "Ancient? The Academy's barely 200 years old." "The Academy, yes." "The scanners." Keth produced a data pad, mandibles clicking as he accessed files. "That's where things become interesting. These aren't standard military-issue biometric readers." Vex leaned forward. "What are they?" "Reverse-engineered progenitor technology." The term hit the conversation like a meteor. Vex had heard whispers about the progenitors during xenoarchaeology electives, the mythical ancient race that supposedly built the hyperspace lanes, seeded habitable worlds, left behind technology that nobody quite understood, but everyone used anyway. "You're saying the scanners are alien artifacts?" "Not alien to us," Keth corrected. "Alien to everyone. The progenitors vanished approximately 50,000 years ago, leaving behind infrastructure that keeps our civilization running. Jump gates, terraforming stations, gravity wells, all progenitor design. We've spent millennia trying to understand how they work." He gestured toward the wall, with one chitinous appendage. "Those scanners read genetic patterns against a database we can't access. Until today, they've only recognized current galactic species with their appropriate clearance levels." "Until they read me as something impossible?" "Precisely. Creator isn't a clearance level we programmed. It's something the scanner's base code recognizes." The cell suddenly felt smaller. "What does that mean?" Before Keth could answer, footsteps echoed down the corridor. Heavy, scaled feet that belonged to someone Vex recognized. "Well, this is cozy," Cadet Morven announced, settling against the wall outside her cell with practiced ease. "Guess I'm your cellmate for the evening." "What did you do?" "Nothing criminal. Just asked too many questions about what happened to you." Morven's tongue flicked out, tasting the recycled air. "Turns out Academy administration gets touchy when cadets start speculating about security breaches." Dr. Keth's attention shifted to the reptilian cadet. "What sort of speculations?" "The usual. Government conspiracy, corporate espionage, interdimensional invasion." Morven shrugged, a gesture that involved his entire torso. "Though my grandmother would probably say something about the first builders." "Your grandmother?" "Traditional stories from my home world. Very old tales about the beings who built the galaxy before anyone else existed, made all the worlds ready for life, connected them with roads, through space, then disappeared." Morven's eyes narrowed. "She always said they'd return someday to reclaim what they made." Keth's mandibles had stopped clicking entirely. "These stories, how old?" older than recorded history, passed down through generations of storytellers before we even had writing. Every world has variations of the same tale. Every world? Far as I know, the details change, but the core stays the same. Ancient builders, great works, mysterious disappearance, eventual return. Morven glanced at Vex. Though nobody ever mentioned they'd return as unremarkable Academy cadets. Dr. Keth was already accessing new files on his datapad, compound eyes moving independently as he cross-referenced databases. Fascinating. I've been studying progenitor artifacts for decades, but I never connected them to cultural mythology. Maybe because you're too busy looking at machines instead of talking to people, Morven suggested. Or maybe because I assumed mythology was just primitive explanation for advanced technology. Keth's tone suggested he was reconsidering that assumption. But if these stories exist across multiple worlds, with no apparent cultural contact, they're not stories, Vex said quietly. They're memories. Both beings turned to stare at her. Think about it, she continued. Every species has legends about the first builders. Every world uses progenitor technology without understanding how it works. And now a scanner that reads progenitor genetic codes is calling me creator. Keth's datapad chimed with an incoming message. He read it, read it again, then made a sound his species used to express profound unease. What? Morven demanded. Academy Medical has been running additional scans on Cadet Vex's biometric data. Keth looked up from his device. Her genetic structure contains markers that shouldn't exist. What kind of markers? The kind we find in tissue samples from progenitor sites, dormant sequences that don't match any known species classification. The detention facility's lighting flickered just once, but enough to cast strange shadows through the bars. They're running more tests, Keth continued. Full genetic analysis, cellular mapping, neurological patterns. Director Thex Knoll has imposed a communication blackout on the entire wing. Why? Because word is already spreading through the Academy network. Students are asking questions about the scanner incident, about you. Vex felt something cold settle in her stomach. What kind of questions? The dangerous kind. Like why a human cadet has genetic markers from an extinct civilization. Like what else might be hiding in human DNA that we haven't noticed. Like whether you're the only one. Morven's scales rippled. The reptilian equivalent of nervous laughter. You think there might be more? I think, Dr. Keth said slowly, that this academy has over 300 human cadets. And if even one more of them tries to access a progenitor, scanner. He didn't need to finish the thought. They all understood the implications. So, what happens now? Vex asked. Now we wait for the genetic analysis results and hope they don't confirm what I'm beginning to suspect. Which is, Dr. Keth's compound eyes fixed on her with uncomfortable intensity. That you're not just carrying progenitor genetic markers, Cadet. You are one. The lights flickered again, longer this time, as if something deep in the Academy's systems was trying to wake up. 3 levels up from the detention facility, the Academy's research division had transformed into something resembling a war room. Holographic displays projected data streams across every available surface, while teams of xenolinguists, geneticists, and cultural analysts worked with the kind of focused desperation usually reserved for preventing galactic incidents. They were trying to prevent exactly that. Commander Jelix Moore coordinated the chaos with military precision, her crystalline carapace reflecting the blue glow of data screens. Status report on human mythological analysis. Research specialist Vorn Ka manipulated a holographic display showing comparative mythology from 47 different worlds. Consistent themes across all surveyed cultures, Commander. Creation myths involving sky builders, or star shapers, appear in civilizations with no historical contact. Coincidence? Statistically impossible. The variations suggest cultural adaptation of a shared source memory. Another researcher, Dr. Felnix from the Xenopsychology Department, interjected from across the room. The human data is particularly troubling. Their mythology doesn't just mention builders, it positions humans as the builders. Commander Jelix Moore's attention snapped toward him. Explain. Human creation stories consistently depict their species as creators, shapers, builders. They have myths about making the first tools, taming fire, constructing cities, reshaping landscapes. Other species mythologize about being created by builders. Humans mythologize about being builders. You're suggesting humans remember being progenitors? I'm suggesting humans never forgot. Research specialist Vorn K. highlighted sections of the mythological database. Look at human expansion patterns over the past 5,000 years. Every world they colonize undergoes systematic terraforming improvements. They don't just adapt to environments, they modify them. All species terraform. Not like humans. Other species adapt worlds to meet survival needs. Humans reshape them according to some internal template, as if they're restoring something to a previous state. The room fell silent, except for the hum of processing systems working overtime. Commander Jelix Moore activated her communication array. Database control. I need a priority search on human colonial records. Parameters, Commander? Infrastructure modifications on human-settled worlds. Cross-reference with known progenitor sites. The response came back faster than anyone expected. Commander, we're already running those searches. Director Thex Knoll's orders. Results? Preliminary data suggests correlation between human terraforming patterns and progenitor archaeological sites. Human colonies consistently build over or near progenitor ruins. Dr. Felnix leaned forward. They're not building over the ruins. They're rebuilding them. That's speculation. Is it? Database control, search for instances of humans repairing or upgrading existing infrastructure. A pause then. Extensive records found. Human engineers consistently modify existing systems rather than replacing them, often improving efficiency beyond original design parameters. And nobody found this suspicious? Human engineering excellence is well documented. Their modifications are typically attributed to advanced problem-solving capabilities. Commander Jelix Moore felt something like dread settling in her thoracic cavity. What about genetic analysis of other human cadets? In progress, Commander. However, we've encountered resistance from human diplomatic channels. What kind of resistance? The human ambassador has requested immediate consultation regarding Academy procedures. Apparently, word has reached Earth diplomatic channels. Dr. Felnix made a sound his species used to indicate alarm. How did Earth find out? Unknown. Communication blackout was implemented, but what? Several human cadets have accessed their personal communication devices despite network restrictions. The holographic displays around the room suddenly flickered, displaying unauthorized data streams that hadn't been requested by any research team. Research specialist Vorn Ka stared at her console in disbelief. Someone's accessing restricted databases remotely. Who? Unknown user. But they're pulling files on progenitor technology, galactic infrastructure development, and... She paused. Human genetic diversity studies. Shut it down. I can't. The access codes are higher priority than my clearance level. Commander Jelix Moore activated emergency protocols. Security, we have unauthorized database access in Research Division. Negative, Commander. All security protocols show authorized access. Authorized by whom? Access codes identify user as priority level creator. The words hung in the air like a poison gas. Dr. Felnix was already accessing his personal research files, cross-referencing with the incoming data streams. The unauthorized access is coming from human-settled worlds. Multiple locations, coordinated timing. How many locations? 17 colonies, all accessing the same restricted files simultaneously. Research specialist Vorn K's display showed a galaxy-wide map with pulsing indicators at human settlements. It's spreading. More colonies are coming online every few minutes. What are they accessing? Everything. Progenitor archaeological data, genetic, databases, infrastructure schematics, terraforming records. She paused, mandibles clicking rapidly. They're downloading our entire knowledge base about their own civilization. The realization hit the room like a physical force. They know, Dr. Felnix said quietly. Somewhere, somehow, humans are remembering what they used to be, and they're reclaiming access to their own technology. Commander Jelix Moore opened a direct channel to Director Thex Knoll. Sir, we need immediate evacuation protocols for Research Division. Why? Because we've been studying the wrong species. We thought we were investigating a security breach involving one human cadet. Instead, we've triggered a species-wide awakening. The holographic displays around them began showing new data, files that none of them had ever seen before, archived in database sections that technically didn't exist. Sir, Commander Jelixmore continued, I don't think the humans ever left. I think they've been here all along, and we just reminded them who they really are. Vex discovered her cell door had unlocked itself sometime during the night. Not opened, unlocked. The biometric reader beside it displayed a gentle blue pulse that matched her heartbeat, as if it had been waiting patiently for her to notice. She found Dr. Keith in the corridor, staring at his datapad with the expression of someone whose worldview had recently been demolished and rebuilt without his permission. The containment field deactivated an hour ago, he said without looking up. Along with every other security system in the detention wing. Malfunction? Authorization. Apparently every lock in this facility recognizes you as its legitimate owner. Morven emerged from his own mysteriously opened cell, stretching muscles that had been cramped in quarters designed for smaller beings. So what's the plan? Make a break for the shuttle bay? Won't be necessary, Dr. Keth replied, finally meeting their eyes. Director Thex Knoll is requesting your presence in the restricted archives, voluntarily. And if I refuse? Then you'll miss the most significant archaeological discovery in galactic history. The restricted archives occupied levels of the Academy that most cadets never knew existed. Vex had assumed they contained military secrets, classified tactical data, embarrassing diplomatic correspondence. She hadn't expected them to contain her species' autobiography. Director Thex Knoll waited beside a vault door that dominated the entire far wall. The entrance itself was covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly, geometric patterns that seemed to shift when viewed peripherally. Cadet Vex, he said formally, thank you for joining us voluntarily. Did I have a choice? You've always had choices. That's rather the point. He gestured toward the vault. This has been sealed for over 200 years. Every attempt to access it has failed. We built the Academy around it because we couldn't move it. What's inside? We don't know. We've never been able to get past the entrance. Vex approached the symbols cautiously. As she drew closer, they began to glow with the same gentle blue light as every other progenitor system that had recognized her presence. All systems await your command, the familiar mechanical voice announced. The vault door didn't open so much as dissolve, revealing a chamber that seemed to extend far beyond what the Academy's blueprints suggested was possible. Shelves lined the walls, filled with devices whose purpose could only be guessed at. Holographic displays materialized as they entered, showing star charts of the galaxy marked with symbols that indicated ownership. "My God," Dr. Keth breathed, compound eyes reflecting the chamber's ambient lighting. "It's a command center." Director Thex Knoll consulted his datapad. "We're receiving reports from across the galaxy. Similar vaults are opening on human colonies, storage facilities, research stations, manufacturing centers, all previously inaccessible." "How many?" "Every world with a significant human population. The infrastructure was already there. They just hadn't remembered how to use it yet." Vex moved deeper into the chamber, drawn by something she couldn't identify. Her hands found control surfaces that responded to her touch, activating systems that had been dormant for millennia. Star charts updated to show current galactic civilization, all the species, all the worlds, all the trade routes that connected them. "It's beautiful," she murmured, then paused. "I mean, it's functioning as intended." The distinction wasn't lost on anyone present. "The genetic analysis results came in this morning," Director Thex Knoll said quietly. "Every human tested carries the same dormant markers, inactive until triggered by proximity to progenitor technology." "Triggered how?" "We're not sure. Some kind of biological recognition system, like a key that only fits the right lock." Morven had wandered over to a display showing population demographics. "According to this, humans have been increasing as a percentage of galactic population for the past 5,000 years. Standard colonization patterns." "No. Look at the projected curves. If these calculations are correct, humans will represent a plurality of galactic citizenship within another millennium." Dr. Keth joined him at the display. "That's impossible. Interspecies reproduction rates don't support those numbers." "Unless," Vex said from across the chamber, "it was always the plan." She had accessed what appeared to be a historical database. Images floated in the air around her, the galaxy as it had been 50,000 years ago, lush and connected, populated by beings who looked remarkably familiar. "The catastrophe that destroyed progenitor civilization didn't kill them," she continued. "It wiped their memories, scattered them across isolated worlds to recover slowly, naturally, without the technology that had made them vulnerable." Vulnerable to what? Themselves. More images appeared, cities that spanned continents, engineering projects that moved stars, civilizations that had grown too complex to sustain. They chose to forget, built a biological timer into their genetics that would only reactivate when their descendants were ready to handle the responsibility again. The chamber's central display activated, showing current galactic civilization from a perspective none of them had seen before. Every species marked by population, development level, cultural maturity. Humanity's colonies glowed with the gentle blue of activated systems. "We've been gardeners," Vex said wonderingly, "letting other species develop naturally while we recovered from our own mistakes. Guiding without controlling, building without dominating. And now? Now we remember." She turned to face them, and for a moment she looked like something far older than her years suggested. "The question is whether you're ready to accept that the species you've been treating as newcomers are actually your landlords." Director Thex Knoll's communication device activated with an emergency signal. "Sir, human ships are requesting permission to dock. They say they're responding to a recalled maintenance contract." The irony was perfect, really. For 50 millennia, the galaxy had worshipped the mysterious progenitors who'd built their civilization, while simultaneously discriminating against their descendants as primitive latecomers. They'd spent centuries studying progenitor artifacts, never realizing they were examining the forgotten homework of species they considered intellectually inferior. Now the lease was up, and the original architects were coming home to inspect the property. "Tell them permission is granted," Vex said, her voice carrying authority that hadn't been there an hour ago. "And Director?" You might want to update the Academy's admission policies. I suspect we'll need to renegotiate the curriculum. After all, it was rather difficult to teach engineering to beings who'd invented it in the first place.